Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. City of Somerton work session. Roll call.
Councilwoman Marta Garcia. Council Member Juan Castillo. He is out of town. Councilwoman Lorena Sendejas. I believe she's on the phone. Oh, there she is. Council Member Juan Roldan. Jesus Roldan, I'm sorry. Present. Council Member Luis Galindo. Vice Mayor Miguel Villalpando. He'll be coming in after the work session, I believe. Mayor Gerardo Anaya.
Present. Okay, we're going to go to the item presentation of preliminary budget for utility and special revenue fund budget request for year 2023.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, Serena Gallegos, Finance Director. Okay, so today we're going to go over our special revenue funds. Let me make a couple of adjustments to this window and in order to show, well, maybe I can't. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with our HERF. The amount of HERF we're estimating this year is about close to $200,000 more than we had initially thought we would receive from the state. So we're ending the year at a positive fund balance. In miscellaneous, and next year we received for our gas tax the preliminary numbers from the state, and we're expected to receive close to $1.5 million next year. The miscellaneous revenue, that's usually what we either interest or what we receive in reimbursement for projects that are being audited by ADOT, and sometimes we'll receive revenues for projects that have been completed way back in, like 2017, 2016. So that's where you see those miscellaneous revenues or any reimbursements that we receive for expenditures that we had paid in the prior fiscal year. Our personnel, we are expected to end the year with our personnel budget being lower than expected. That has to do along with turnover. And in next fiscal year, there's a request for an additional position for streets. For the current year, for the next year, operations did increase a bit with gas going up and increases in expenses. That was the real main increase in operations, as well as some equipment repairs and maintenance. Let's see, capital outlay. We reviewed some of the CIPs that are included in this year, in 2023, last fiscal year. Actually, I did spot an error on my behalf here in the $1,053,000. That actually included $500,000 from the $500,000 for the projects are getting all mixed up for Jefferson, northbound, the north half of Jefferson that the city is responsible for the high school. It's actually, it actually belongs to the Parkview, with the Parkview construction. So that $500,000 will be moved out of here. And so the adjustment will be so that the surplus or deficit within HERF would be about $600,000, which is much better. However, in 2024, we will have to review our projects to see which ones take greater priority because the deficit is significant and we may not be able to execute all the projects in 2024. So And of course, we have a contingency of $162,000. The debt service. So because we didn't purchase we purchased it this year. The sweeper. The sweeper came in this year, right? Okay. So in debt service, why did that get reduced? I think it was as a result of vehicles that I had included originally in that debt service that really didn't go into fruition. And actually that debt service, I didn't update. So that amount will be reduced by about $40,000.
The capital outlay, what's that? What does that entail?
The capital outlay is the street sweeper. So it's part of our capital improvements, but it's more equipment than it is an actual improvement. So that's why it's separate. So you see it all together in the schedule of capital improvement. Go ahead.
80,000 for a small dump.
Oh, thank you. 80,000 for a small dump truck, and there was another project in there as well. Do you have your list?
You have
A piece of equipment. I'm sorry, it was a piece of equipment, but I don't recall which one it was. Yes. That's what it was.
And 100,000 for the biaxial pathway.
Okay.
So it's one or the other, because if you place the 80,000 for the finance, it's not going to be as a capital outlay.
Okay.
But the pathways, I have 100,000 for the biaxial pathway.
Okay. But so you have the 80,000 for the dump truck, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I believe that you also had some repairs and maintenance on one of your other equipment as well. Okay. There we go. Okay. So there is going to be an adjustment just here in the CIPs for that $500,000. Did we? Are you okay? Does that answer your question, Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. So with HERF, overall, we have a good fund balance and cash flow. This year, like I said, with the adjustment of that $500,000, I'll go ahead and send you all the adjusted numbers, and that way you have them and you know what the surplus and deficit will be like for 2023. And then in 2024, we are foreseeing moving some of those projects around depending on the priority and the timing in which they hit. Because some of these projects are dependent upon the high school and the timing of that coming in. So that's not necessarily set in stone. Okay, I'll move on to the ARPA funds or the federal funds. For the federal funds, we did go over these at our last work session, and we have, for example, on the projects for the court, that was the court security system. The police capital outlay was the cameras, and then some money set aside for the Bay Area at the police or the public safety facility. In parks, we have the AC at the community center, as well as the expansion of the community center. In finance, we have the ERP replacement, which will be starting next fiscal year. In economic development, we have that $120,000 that was for the COCOPA. And in IT, it included the project for the wiring and equipment of City Hall. Let's see. The next big project is the water CIP, which is the new water tank that will start in 2023. And wastewater is a portion of the, is it the Somerton Heights? Not the Somerton Heights, it's the one with the county, right? The one with the county, the flood control district? That's the South Somerton drainage, which did qualify for $175,000 of these ARPA funds. The transfers out are for hazard pay for COVID related exposure for employees. Those, I believe, we are working on bringing that to you in the next council meeting. So you'll see more of that. So we went over the CIPs in our last meeting, and this is just a breakout of the funds associated with the ARPA capital improvements. And this really takes all the funds that are available to the city of Somerton and and has allocated them to those projects, both capital improvements and capital outlay, and transfer outs to the general fund for personnel costs. Do you have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll move on to the Parkview commercial development. We're estimating that in this fiscal year, we will have property sales of 1.1 million and next year 1.2. The reimbursement is for 1.2. The 1.2 million in reimbursement is for the infrastructure that we will be completing. That's really the payback from each of the essentially not tenants, but the property owners. Once we complete the project, we'll go ahead and invoice them to get the funds back for the commercial infrastructure that we've executed. That's part of the agreement that they sign over when we sell the real estate. That's correct, right? Okay. And within the CIP or expenditures, we have the infrastructure, the commercial infrastructure improvements, as well as that will be changing to include the $500,000 for the north side of Jefferson. Excuse me. And I've also come up with an estimate of the revenue associated with the remaining parcels, which I believe we'll go over today during executive session. Right. Okay.
Without getting into confidential matters, maybe.
All right. Do you have questions on these? Parkview Commerce?
So initially we had Jefferson HERF, and then the decision was made to transfer it into CIP?
No, it's not that the decision was made. It's just that I accidentally put it in HERF. It actually, because there's really no other funding source for that Jefferson outside of the Parkview Commerce. So all along, that's been one of the projects that we've included in here, similar to the Parkview commercial area. If that's something that council would like, we can move it over back to HERF because it does qualify because it is a street. It's just that with those $500,000 being part of HERF, it would put the HERF fund in a bit of a financial situation because there are already a lot of projects, or we would have to scale back on the projects within HERF.
Can we put a percentage?
I'm sorry?
Can we put a percentage?
A percentage of?
500,000. It will not be on a...
We could. Yes, that's definitely something we could do.
How's it?
Well, because the project really qualifies for either one. The reason that I had initially put it as part of Parkview Commerce is because it's specific to that area. And within HERF, there's already a lot of projects, and it would put a lot of strain on HERF as it is. There's already several projects lined up. And then in next fiscal year, we'll have to move some of those out just because that's a lot of expense for 1 year for HERF.
So if we transfer those 500 to here, we're banking on selling them and impact fees, or just selling it. So we are hoping that we sell them in order to. So
that half of Jefferson doesn't qualify for impact fees because that it's not in the IIP.
Okay.
The projects that are part of the IIP, they will be coming out of development fees.
And when would that Jefferson have to be built?
This coming fiscal year.
So yeah, I say we leave HERF there, and is there a way to transfer it? We sell it, because hoping to sell those lots and then not having enough funding to build that Jefferson, half of Jefferson, at least.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. I apologize, yes. So,
and could that be refunded if we sell them back to HERF? And like we've done with other, before, when we had a deficit with the enterprise funds, and a loan, and then give it back.
Oh, you mean like just transfer in 500,000 to HERF from here?
Well, if the 500,000 are left in HERF, and whenever those lots are sold, maybe next year, in 2 years, be transferred back to HERF, kind of like a loan.
Like a loan to HERF. At the end of the day, it would be a wash, really, because we would have to come up with those $500,000 from either the general fund or essentially this particular fund. So the reason I left it there is because we really don't have any other way of paying for it outside of these funds. Because of the HERF situation. So if you meant to say, like, if we leave the project in HERF and just transfer over.
Whenever we sell these lots, know that it's going to go to
HERF?
To HERF.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, either way, that's definitely something. If you would prefer to see it, to have it stay in HERF, we could do that. Go ahead.
Just comment. Just remember that the high school is going to build the entire width of Jefferson. But we are, according to our development agreement, we are going to need to pay half of that road. So basically, high school is going to build that north portion of the Jefferson, but we are going to pay them. And similar is going to happen with Parkview Avenue. As you know, Parkview is going to be the main entrance to the high school from Main Street to Jefferson. We are going to build the entire width of Parkview, but we're going to build them for the half east of Parkview Avenue.
So then, Mayor and Council, if we have an agreement and they come to us to pay for that portion under agreement next year before they open, then we need to come up with that money, probably HERF is the best place to have it in. I don't know where it would come from at this point.
Well, to me,
can you go to the mic, please?
In my opinion, the best place to have it in is this Parkview Commerce Fund, just to keep it separate, because with regards to the other projects, they partially are being funded by HERF and partially being funded by development fees. So the portion of the commercial development, and these are the only ones that are not being funded partially by any other fund. So that's why I opted to show it here.
Yeah, as long as we have the money available and we're not hoping to sell those lots, and we're not selling. So as long as we have a way to reimburse the high school at, however it's allocated,
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, if you'd like to see it in HERF, I can move it out and put it in HERF. It's just, to me,
Whatever makes you, as long as we have it.
yeah, we'll have it. Well, that's what we.
Yeah, and we're not hoping to sell it, and we're stressing out that we don't sell, and then we spend those HERF funds on other projects. So at least we have that.
Oh, I see what you, okay. Now I see where you're coming from. You just don't want us to overspend our HERF and not have that money, those monies available. I get it. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense. And I know that's part of the reason why I had thought about leaving it in HERF, and then I transferred it over, is because of the load that HERF has currently. And because the reason why there's so many projects in HERF is because we were anticipating that we would get additional HERF monies from the state. So hopefully once the census is the census, I don't know, is it an amendment or is it appeal?
Yes.
Once the census appeal goes through, maybe we'll have additional funds in the next fiscal year that we'll be able to put to some of those projects, and hopefully not have to move them out. So I understand what you're saying now. Well, we keep a very close eye on HERF, just because I know that Sam, part of his operation consists of pavement preservation. And so the pavement preservation is what really goes up and down when the CIPs are coming in. So we keep a very close eye on it to ensure that it's solvent. Okay. Do you have any other questions for this one? No? Okay. Okay. For our senior center. So in the senior center, you'll notice that grant revenues are significantly higher, and that's because we received additional COVID funding from WACOG and the program. We don't know if that funding will be available in the next fiscal year, so we're opting conservatively to be consistent with the revenues that we've received in the past. Other charges is that's really the amount that we get in cash where the customers pay for meals. On average, we receive about $12,000. And then the miscellaneous is any special events or donations that the senior center gets. I think will be, my estimates were on the conservative side. I don't think we're going to get more than that. Hopefully next year. I don't know if I haven't heard anything from WACOG. Jesus, have you, about additional funding for next fiscal year? Yeah. Okay. So it was just this year that they had additional funding for the senior center. So with regards to personnel, there wasn't a huge change in the personnel. In fact, I think the allocations, once we reviewed the allocations, it caused some of that budget to decrease, just because we were looking at the allocations and what the most effective way to allocate all the positions that actually are coded to the senior center. So that's why you see a bit of a decrease there. What about operations? Operations did increase significantly. I believe that's as a result of some special events. Do you want to talk about the additional events that you have that you budgeted for within the senior center? Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, Susan Mesa, Parks and Rec Director. Just want to mention we have the rolling over the event for the fundraiser for the Senior Center Valentine's Day Dance. That's the main expense there. Also, we added additional funding for the celebrations, just to have additional funding for performances, the gifts, and don't be, seniors are getting up in age, and their fundraising that they've been doing is mostly for Vegas trip. So they're not shorthanded for their regular celebrations, monthly celebrations. That's basically the breakdown.
Did they receive additional funds?
Yes, they're acquiring right now donations for their travel expense. Any further comments, questions? Thank you.
They did receive additional donations. I believe they're looking to increase their fundraisers. And so I believe that's part of the reason for the increase is those travel expenses. So here is our water utilities. So in our water utilities, it looks like we're on track to beat our initially budgeted water sales, as well as the, I've also included the increase for the 2023, the 2023 fee increases. Connections are also up in 2022. Shutoffs are as well, unfortunately, but that's part of where we received the funding that goes to Somerton Cares and miscellaneous. Again, these are more of interest or reimbursements, et cetera, that we might receive. So our revenue is expected to increase by about $80,000 in 2023. In personnel, our personnel numbers were down. I believe we had a significant amount of turnover in water. Yeah, in water and wastewater. And I believe there's an extra position as well in water. Correct. With regards to operations, we are a little over in operations, and I believe that's as a result of equipment repairs. In our operations for I believe it has to do with the chemicals as well. The chlorine, both in water and wastewater, increased significantly due to the shortage in COVID, really. With regards to the current year in capital outlay, this includes the vehicles that were purchased. And next year, there is $35,000. That's part of the not the dump truck, the backhoe. Okay, so there's a backhoe that is split between water and wastewater, and that's why it's in capital outlay. So for the current year, the CIP, there was, I believe the only project that was pushed over was the tanks, and that's as a result of having to have one operational before we move the other. Correct? Here, I'll have you talk.
Yes, basically the projects that are going to roll over is the water tank and the design of the water treatment plant, which includes the tank, the plant, the booster pumps, and the well.
And so part of the tank, or actually majority of part of the tank is actually a loan from WIFA. And so the loan is split between the 2020 year and the 2023 year. So that's the loan proceeds you see for 2022 and 2023. And in 2024 is where the third tank is scheduled to be built, but the third tank is actually budgeted in the Arpa funds. So if we go back up here, you'll see the $2 million for water in 2023. Right there. So that's why, that's why you don't see any CIPs really in 2024. because we'll be in the process of finishing up the rehabilitation of the new tank and then having starting on the new tank, the third tank.
So we still have a deficit in the.
We do
water
have a
there?
deficit for now, but this deficit is definitely, we're able to support this deficit through fund balance. Where we are going to have to look at other funding options is in 2026, where we have this $900,000. In 2026, what is that $900,000?
2026, I have the water treatment plant number 3.
The third water treatment plant? That's where we'll have to look for alternative funding sources. Go ahead.
I mean, as you know, all the tank, the booster pumps, and the plant, which include the filters and the well, everything it is on the IIPs for utilities.
And that's potentially another WIFA loan that we would be looking to get to fund that third treatment plant, and that would also include some forgivable principal. So I didn't want to put the $900,000 in the loan section yet, just because it's a little far. But that's that would be my intent, is to seek out WIFA funding for that particular tank, for that particular project. We have so many tanks, one this year, one next year, and one the year after. So I'm sorry. Do you have any questions?
Are you gonna give us a breakdown? I don't know if it's gonna be here, but how much we have on each for the development fee accounts?
Yes, I was planning to go through those with you in our next presentation. So I'll have a breakdown of how much we have in each account and how much we'll have to transfer in to accommodate some of these projects. So yes, the development fees are definitely something that we're looking at, just because for example, the water development fees, we don't have very much since we just started collecting within the water development fees. So that's definitely going to be something that we have to look for other sources of funding, and then have water development fees pay those back. So for example, for this treatment plant, if we did receive a WIFA loan, if we did go after and receive a WIFA loan, a portion of that loan would be paid out of the development fees, not just the water fund. So definitely development would be paying their share of that loan. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. All right. Wastewater, actually, our wastewater fund is doing a lot better than our water fund. Part of the reason that is because we increased rates a little bit more aggressively within the wastewater fund than we did in the water fund, but we limited only to 3 years, whereas the rate increase for water was for 5 years. So that's part of the reason why we're doing so much better within the wastewater fund. The cash balance is close to $1 million. So we're able to really take some of these deficits and without a lot of grief. So the service charges for 2023 are estimated to be 1.6 and expected to increase to 1.68, close to 2.7 in 2023. Connections are anticipated to be 23,000 this year, and I'm being conservative for the next year and going with 21. Again, miscellaneous are reimbursements, interest, et cetera, that we would receive in the fiscal year. I don't foresee them being significant in 2023. So for personnel, because our wastewater fund is doing a little better, some of the personnel allocations, I went through and adjusted them so that a little bit more of the allocations that go to wastewater were a little higher than they were in water. So that's why you see a bit of an increase there, just because the wastewater fund is in a better financial circumstances than the water fund. With regards to operations.
And personnel, there's no new.
Did you ask for one? Oh, that's right.
Yes, Mayor. I already request one for water, one for wastewater, and as Serena mentioned, one for streets, one street maintenance.
But we also went over the allocations for some of the positions. The increase in operations really has a lot to do with chemicals. That was really the biggest increase within our operations, was the cost of supplies, materials and supplies. Let's see, with regards to, go ahead.
I just want to mention also, Mayor, that on the operations as well, as you know, the wastewater treatment plant has a lot of equipment that is already, we don't have the ability to have a preventive maintenance because we don't have operators. So basically, we are expending some money in repairs or replacement of equipment, basically on the treatment plant, and also some of the pumps. The big pumps on the lift station will already replace like 2 or 3. That's why I place one spare pump on my CIP because of that. Now the good thing on the wastewater treatment plant is we are installing the bar screen. It is already on the bid process. We're going to have the pre-bid meeting this Thursday and the bid opening on the 26th. So with that, bar screen is going to help a lot on the pumps at the wastewater treatment plant.
And we have obviously the lift station and force main for that's servicing the high school as well as the commercial development within the CIPs. And so we have a large majority of that coming back to us. So if you look, our CIP estimates for this year are 2.3 million. And of that, we're receiving in loan proceeds 1.5 million. So it essentially washes out there. I do like to include the loan proceeds at the bottom. So if it weren't for the loan proceeds, we would be at a deficit of 1.7 million versus 159,000. And for the debt service, I had included the payment for the full loan. However, because the project isn't complete yet, and we haven't taken the full extent of the loan proceeds, the payment won't be due until next fiscal year. So I've included it in 2023. I hope that makes sense. As with regards to why the debt service is lower than had budgeted. Okay. Do you have any questions there? No? Okay. In sanitation. Okay, so our sanitation so we budgeted 921,000. We haven't received what we anticipated for recycling, and that's as a result of just not having, or do you want to talk about how you run the recycle program? I know that.
Yes, but unfortunately, we don't have the inmate labor now since COVID. So that's why we are basically not having that revenue and having more expenses, because we're gonna need to send all the garbage to the landfill.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, that's why we have a little bit of a shortfall there in the recycling portion of it, and in miscellaneous. Miscellaneous includes, I think, replacement of containers and interest and any reimbursements as well. So in personnel, we did have a bit of an increase. I think that's as a result of one of your part-timers, one of the part-timers that had, that we had originally, that there wasn't an increase. And this year there's a shortfall. And in next year, there's a little bit of an increase, but that's as a result of the overall COLA and increase in medical expenses. You don't have any new or additional positions. Okay. And in the operations, I think the increase there was in the landfill charges, because since we're not moving those, that we're not selling that recycling, you'd have to send it to the landfill. So that's why the cost of operations have increased. Go ahead.
In addition, just remember that you probably remember that we have give a City of San Luis assisting us on the trash pickup, and City of Yuma as well. So basically, we also, when we receive the recycling at the recycling plant, we need to basically send that on those containers to the landfill. So that's the reason why it also increases. Basically, the most important thing is the landfill charges. That's why those expenses increase.
So why is the estimate almost $40,000 less than more than this budgeted this year? And so what's the reason for it?
I believe those are landfill charges, correct?
So we're not estimating that for next fiscal year?
Actually, it's a combination of the landfill charges as well as the repairs and maintenance of the actual equipment. So we had to invest a lot because we did not have,
Correct. We already spent some money for the truck 285, one of our residential trucks. That is not going to happen. So we already repaired that truck, and it's not going to pass that expense to next year. And in addition, we have the new truck, and of course, we are depending of the recycling plant. We're going to start saving some money there. Also, we change our vendor. Instead of sending the landfill up, the trash to the landfill up in Yuma, now we are using County 19. So that is a better price, and that's why we're also going to save a little bit of money on operations.
So yeah, we were anticipating that the vehicle that our refuse vehicle would be purchased much sooner than, we ordered it since last year, we just hadn't received it. And because we hadn't received it, we had to continue maintaining the older vehicle, correct? And that's why we don't anticipate those charges reoccurring. Did you want to?
Yes, also, in addition to that, we are not going to continue repairing the front loader, the commercial route. So hopefully we have a presentation tonight on the sanitation rates. So that's also taking consideration if that route will continue or not, because those two trucks are really in need to replace.
And so in the capital outlay, you'll see that for next year, you also have the body of a new vehicle and another major repair, correct?
Is the body for the 285? It's a 2015 truck. Mm-hmm. The engine and the chassis is in real good conditions. We already spent some money on the engine. So we are going to replace just the body to that truck because it has a low miles. And we are planning to purchase another truck in 2024.
Correct, in 2024. and I already have 2024 in there as well as the debt payments for 2024. I think overall, because we did save on the debt service and we had some cash and fund balance from the prior years that in next fiscal year, the 335 is not a problem. We can absorb that. And in 2024, because we're financing the vehicle, it shouldn't. We'll be in a favorable financial position with regards to the sanitation fund, especially if we do go forward and increase rates. Do you have any other questions? Comments? Thoroughly confused? No? And I'll be presenting the tax levy next. I'll be doing the presentation on the tax levy for us to hold a public hearing at the end of June. Okay, so there'll be more to come. You'll see a lot of me. I know May and June are when you see me the most, but I'll give you a break there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. 6:49, meeting's adjourned.